All right, we're talking about the dogs. We're going to do this live. If you got a question for me, just throw it up there and I will do my best to answer it. Dean Legge from Dog Post. And we're talking about Georgia. It's the middle of May. Kirby Smart has had a lot to say here lately. He talked with the Birmingham radio station earlier this week, and I thought it was kind of interesting to hear his take on a lot of different things. But one thing that he talked about was rolling into the national championship game after the loss to Alabama in the SEC championship. Well, I said not the national championship game exclusively, but this is what he had to say going into the Orange Bowl and the national championship and all that just after the Dogs uh, played Alabama. He said, we talked about the cold, hard truths, and the truths where we didn't play well in the red area. We turned the ball over and we were really bad on third down. And those were all things we could control. He said, so we focused on those things and we knew we had to get better. We had to step up. It's the first time we had really been tested, and our guys responded well. We had some guys who felt like they were out of shape, which was something that was talked about a lot, by the way, sort of after that a little bit. Um, and he went on to say, and I thought that was really big for us to play better, not only in the Michigan game, but in the national championship game. So if you've got a question, I'll do my best to answer it, particularly for those of y'all that I recognize. It's a Sunday night. I don't know how often we're going to do live Sunday night, but we're going to try it tonight, just real quick, just to see how things are going. For Georgia, you know, we're getting in deep into the recruiting season. June is going to be a big deal. Matt DeBerry and I have talked about this a lot privately, and we've seen that on the board as well over on Dog Post. But it's going to be not make or break time, but it's go time for sure for Georgia. Um, on the recruiting front, this is when you start setting your class. June and July, but really particularly June is a really important moment in your recruiting calendar because it gives you the ability to have guys on campus, very low key. There's not a lot of, you know, riffraff on campus. It's really it's a good time to have guys on campus, um, and it sets you up for the classes and beyond, right? I mean, um, I think to me, we're going to see if Georgia's shot with Arch Manning is like a really legitimate one, which I think we all think is the case, or if they're the leader. Right now, it does not feel like they're the leader, but that's what the summer's for. Now, how long this thing goes on with him, I don't know. The longer it goes, I think the longer it helps Texas. Here's a question. In your opinion, how would Arch Manning fit into the 2023 quarterback room? I would think he would fit as the backup. That's what I think. Um, we are past the moment in time in Georgia's program where a freshman quarterback is going to come in and start. Generally speaking, I'd say we're at the point where you need to be beyond special to come in and start. The guys that Georgia has on campus right now, whether you're talking about Brock Vandegrift, Carson Beck, or Gunnar Stockton, they all three will have at least a year of experience. There's plenty of optimism about Carson Beck's future at Georgia alone. So 2023, no, Arch Manning is not just going to come in and start. Chad in Georgia has got a great question I'm going to kind of get to in a second about the schedule. And then Anchor Hikes. What kind of impact do you expect Tyke Smith to have on the defense this coming year? That is a good question. He's one of the guys that on my recruiting board over here, or my 85 breakdown board, I always forget who Smith is because he didn't play this past year, right? Um, well, Tyke Smith's a pretty good player. And I would imagine that you're talking about a guy that was a third string All American, all conference for when he played at West Virginia in the Big 12. You would be talking about a back end of the secondary that would have some pretty good players. You have the return of Keely Ringo. You would have Smith. You'd have Poole, and you'd also have Christopher Smith. So you've got some guys back there for sure. And when do you think Texas and Oklahoma will join the SEC? I do not think it will be early right now. I don't. I think that it's not going to make sense for them to come in early. I think, you know, it's just what it is. Here's a Alabama fan who seems to be uh, jumping in here. I'm not sure why that would be the case, but hey, we're happy to have you. Marvin Jones, will he make an impact? Uh, you know, the short answer is yes. The question is for how much of an impact, right? I mean, when you look at this defensive line, there is space for someone to come in that's not played yet a lot and have a Jalen Carter type freshman year. Is he going to come in and be, what Devontae was a season ago? What, Trayvon Walker? You know, I doubt it, but he has the capability to be very, very different. Let's see. Dog Post is the #1 football show on YouTube. There's no question about that. While y'all are watching and listening, thanks for everybody joining us live. The #1 way you can support us is by getting the book. If you've not gotten it yet, the link is down below. I also put it in the chat, and I appreciate everybody who's gotten it. Believe me, I know a lot of y'all have. I want to go back to something that Chad in Georgia says or asks, because this really is a tricky question. Okay, he says, "Is there any chance the Southeastern Conference goes to 9 games, talking about 9 conference games, when Texas and Oklahoma join with a 3-6-6 schedule format?" Now, I'll be honest, Chad. I don't know what the 3-6-6 is. I know what a 3-6 schedule would be. I'm assuming that would be 3 permanents, 6 rotating, and then I guess it would be 6 one year and 6 the next. We'll just stick with the 3 permanent. I think we're not going to see divisions in the future. Okay. It's just too complicated. You would have Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee in the East. You could see a Vanderbilt going to the West. I mean, it just becomes a mess. So I think what you're going to see is what we talked about the other day. You're going to see permanents. Now, the question is how many permanents? Because, for instance, for Georgia, it's real easy to get 3 permanents because you can go and it will go in this order: Florida, Auburn, and then you can pick from a lot of schools: Tennessee, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. There's a lot of permanents because of all the teams, Kentucky, that Georgia's played through the years. You could go back to Mississippi. The problem with that is that's Georgia. And for instance, South Carolina getting 3 permanents is a much more complicated task because I can assure you at the top of Carolina's list in the SEC would be Georgia. And Georgia, I think at best, South Carolina would be the 3 for Georgia. So you got some problems there. Texas would be problematic because in Texas's case, you would have Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and then I'm certain Missouri would want Texas. I'm certain Arkansas would want Texas. I'm certain LSU would probably want Texas. In Alabama's case, okay, you say, okay, well, Alabama's going to keep Auburn. They're going to keep Tennessee. What happens with LSU Alabama? One of the great rivalries of the last, of this century of college football. So Chad and George's got a really good question. I don't know how they're going to make this work, but I do know that there's a real problem with Georgia and Alabama playing once every 10 years at home against the other. That's not going to work. That's not what this league is about. It has, built a bridge to where we are right now because of the stupidity of adding Texas A&M and Missouri. Georgia doesn't need to be playing Missouri anymore. It's dumb. I mean, you take the win, I guess, but to go all the way out there, y'all, it's just not. I'm telling you right now, I've been out there a lot. Don't bother going. Aside from 2021, have there ever been 2 conference championship contenders that went on to face each other for the national championship? Well, yeah, 2011 when LSU and Georgia, excuse me, when LSU and Alabama uh, both played one another for the national championship. No hate, great one. Will Georgia be in the top 5 every year? Would Georgia? Will Georgia? Come on now, listen. Hey, listen. It's tough doing this, talking to y'all, and y'all making typos. Let's clean it up, right? I'm trying to help you out here, no hate. Will Georgia be in the top 5 every year if they were in the SEC? Would Georgia be in the top 5 every year? Well, they just whipped Alabama's ass, so I think the answer to that in 2022 is yeah. There's no question that the West is a better division. But that doesn't matter when you get on the field. The ACC is not in the same universe as the SEC. And when Clemson was dragging Alabama's skull around in San Francisco, I don't think anybody was worried about what league they were from. That's an irrelevant thing, particularly because we're not going to have divisions soon. Does Alabama have a tougher path to get to Atlanta? Yeah, they do. That's what it is. I mean, you know, I don't know. So what? Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is in the comments. We're going to do live shows every now and then, but the number one way you can support us is by getting this. If you've not gotten this yet, y'all, and I know some of y'all hadn't, I see how many people watch videos over a month, and I can assure you I've not sold 80,000 books. So let's get to 80,000. Here's a look. It's a great book. Don't miss out. Here's a good question, or I don't know if it's a good question. I'm going to read it though. Why does everybody get confused at that question? Alabama and LSU didn't play in the SEC championship game. They're both in the West. Exactly. Here's a statement. It is ridiculous to say that Georgia has 3 of the top. Is it ridiculous to say that Georgia has 3 of the top tight ends in the country? Oh man, I don't know if it's ridiculous. I mean, for me, for production, Brock and Gilbert are going to be more productive in terms of numbers. But Darnell can do stuff those two guys can't do. Now everybody's a little bit jumpy about Darnell because he thinks about leaving and all this stuff. Look, Darnell Washington, you need him on your team. That guy is legit. He is the I, I he's the best blocking tight end on the team. Is he the best blocking tight end in the country? I don't know the answer to that, but he is an exceptional player for Georgia. Do they have the top 3 tight ends in the country? I don't know because in terms of production, it's going to be hard to make that argument. They do have the best position room in that position room in the country, and that position room is tight end. I mean, they're amazing. Here's Lesko wants clarification. Aside from 2011, has there ever been 2 conference championship contenders that have gone on to face each other in the national championship, or is this the first time in history? So your question's a little bit that no, the only time 2 teams have played one another from the same league for the national championship in modern football has been the 11 championship with LSU and Alabama, and Georgia, Alabama in 17, and Georgia, Alabama in 21. Now, anyone can correct me, but that's going on straight up memory. You're saying conference contenders. We have that, to my knowledge, and this is a fact. We have never seen 2 teams play for the conference championship and then go on to play for the national championship. In other words, we've seen teams play one another in the regular season or before the bowls and go on to play national championships. We've never seen them play in a conference championship game and then go on to play for it, because in modern, and it kind of depends what you consider modern college football, all right? But in the BCS era and beyond, so that would be 94-ish, 93, in that ballpark, after the alliance. That in that time, we've only ever seen 2 teams from different leagues play one another. So, it's been a very odd thing. But y'all look, this is not going to be the last time that Georgia and Alabama play for the national championship. It's not going to be the last time that they play one another for the national championship. And it's not going to be the last time that two teams from the same league play in the national championship game. I think in the future, the likelihood of that being an SEC duo is extremely high. Um, you're not going to see two Pac-12 teams in the near future. You could see two Big Tens, but the Big Ten's kind of got to get out of one another's way. And I think you got to have an expansion of the playoff if you're talking about the Big Ten. Like Mike Slive has said for some time, and we've talked about, the SEC is all good with four. They're cool with it because twice in five champions, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, twice in the last 5 years, we've seen the league play for national championships exclusively amongst themselves. And every single season, we've seen the SEC play for the national championship. 17. Well, shit. I mean, you can go back to. I mean, the last time the SEC did not play for the national championship was 14. Okay, that is the only time, and I'm going off memory here. That is the only time since 2005 that the SEC has not played in the national championship. I'll just run them off real quick, just off the top of my head. 6 was Florida, 7 was LSU, 8 was Florida, 9 was Alabama, 10 was Auburn, 11, 12 was Alabama, 13 Auburn, 14 was Oregon and Ohio State, 15 Bama, 16 Bama, 17 Bama, Georgia, 18 Bama, 19 was LSU, Bama, Georgia. So the league is all good with, just 4 teams. They're totally good with that. So no hate is mad. All right, no hate. Georgia would probably lose 2 games a year if they were in the SEC West. I mean, are we going to do this now? Do you want me to review things? Okay, you need to readjust your expectations for your situation. The SEC West, Georgia, I think, has lost what? They lost to LSU in 18. They lost to Auburn in 17. They lost to Ole Miss in 16. In 19, I'm trying to remember, they lost to South Carolina. So they went undefeated against the West that year. They lost to Alabama in 20. They did not lose to anybody in 21. Stop, right? I mean, if Alabama played Georgia and Florida every year, would they be undefeated every year? Apparently not. Let's get back to reality. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going live every single day. Sorry. I don't have the capability to do that. Not possible. But you have the capability of picking up DAWGSTRUCTION today. Okay? I will sign it for you. Even no hate, I will get it to you. You can review when Georgia beat Western Schools badly. Here we go. Ready? Arkansas 37-0. That was a beating. Auburn 34-10. Are you tired yet? And your favorite, Alabama 33-18. Y'all can review those at home. Make sure you're checking the link down below. I'll take heat for this. This is Anchor Heights. I'll take heat for this, but Stetson was a top 3 quarterback. Was top 3 in quarterback rating last year. Much more reps this year. Yada 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 yada. Is it not possible? I'll be a long shot that he gets some deserved Heisman hype, man. If he plays like he did at the end of the year, he was going to get plenty of Heisman hype. There's no question about that. Jackson Starnes, is funny to me that our 2020 defense had all the players in the draft, less De'Aaron Kendrick, plus Jalen Carter, Nolan, Chris Smith, and that we were not elite that year with all those defensive backs. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on in 2020. They were pretty good. I don't know that they were elite. Let's see. Why am I mad? I can't. This isn't about you, my friend. The opening line, has the opening line changed from? This is a good question. I don't know the answer to this, so let me look it up. Has the line changed for the Oregon game? Georgia was a 15-point favorite not that long ago. The thing that's kind of interesting in all of this. No, I don't think there are new lines out on that. I think those were early lines and kind of they're not going to move them soon. But we'll see. No spring. There was a lot. So 2020, back to that 2020 defense. So a couple of different things on that front. Okay, you had some people say is the greatest football team of all time, which is Alabama 2020. I'm not sure I would say that, but it was certainly one of the best football offenses of all time in college football. That's one team that Georgia played defensively that they dealt with. You had an exceptional Florida offense. Both those teams obviously went on to play for the league championship. And that was one thing that you look back on that 2020 defense and say, well, why weren't they as good as, yada, yada. I mean, the quarterbacks were better. I mean, the quarterbacks were better in 2020 than 2021. I mean, Bryce Young won the Heisman. Mac Jones was a better quarterback in the single season. In the single season, over their career and all this stuff. I mean, Bryce Young's got to not do dumb stuff sometimes. I mean, that pick, this play, that's on Bryce Young, and there's no doubt about it. And he was trying to, get him down the field. I mean, they had plenty of time. Was no issue. They were only down 8. We've seen Alabama drive. He had just done that against Auburn. He just made a mistake. He's got to play better than that. I mean, it just and then on top of that, in 2020. So I was the only person that went to every single game that Georgia played in a media capacity in 2020, and the defense, when you look back at that Georgia defense in 2020, they certainly weren't bad. But again, I say they did deal with two extremely powerful offenses. Now, they allowed 10 to Arkansas, 6 to Auburn. Tennessee scored 21, but I think one of those was a defensive touchdown. Obviously, Alabama scored 41. Kentucky scored 3. Florida scored 44. Mississippi State with 24. Carolina with 16. Missouri with 14, Cincinnati with 21. I mean, that's pretty good too now. That's pretty good. So here's a question. Here's a statement about Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh ends up being our best running back this season. Book it. I don't know about book it. I don't know about book it. But Kenny Kenny is not the better running back to me. Kenny has the capability to have huge plays because of his breakaway ability. I don't. Kenny's been more durable for what they've asked him to do. Now, if Kendall Milton has an injury-free season, he will be the better running back. That's just my take. Not that hard for me to get there. Now, here's cousin Eddie coming in. I've had 3 Gator fans saying Georgia will lose 3 or 4 games in 22. Can anyone explain or see where these 3 losses come from? I'll get you 3 losses. I can play this game pretty well. All right, here's who Georgia can lose to in 2022. They can lose to Oregon. They will not lose to Oregon. They can lose to Oregon. Samford, no. South Carolina, no. Kent State, no. At Missouri, no. Auburn, no. Vanderbilt, no. Florida, okay. All right, that's 2 losses. Tennessee, they can lose to Tennessee. Mississippi State, I don't think so. Kentucky, there's that. And Georgia Tech, which I could beat. So, no. I mean, they're not going to lose those games. But they could lose at Carolina in theory. At Missouri, no. Auburn, no. Vandy, no. Florida, probably not. Tennessee, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky, that's challenging to me right there. Let's see some other statements. I'm just going to talk now because y'all are really going in over here, and sometimes I can't. It's tough to have thoughts and then and then talk to the camera while you're reading the chats live. Again, we appreciate everybody that's gotten the book. The book is down below. Make sure you're checking that out. If you've already checked it out, how about forward it to your buddies on your email list? It's a great gift, and we've finally gotten some new books in, so I'm ready to roll here immediately. I think this Georgia team, the over under being 11.5. I mean, That's a lot. That's challenging. 11 and a half. I mean, that means you can lose one game and lose that bet. So that's a tricky one, right? Um, but this is a really good Georgia team. I mean, we talked about earlier, we talked about Tyke Smith, right? I mean, the defense is gonna, the defense is not gonna be as good. I don't see how it could be as good as, an exceptional, an exceptional whatever it was, you know, generational defense, one of the top five defenses of all time. And you want to make the case that this is one of the best defenses ever in college football. I think you can make the case that it is. We have seen in this league in back to back to back years, we have seen if you're going to win this league, if you're going to win the national championship out of the SEC, you'd better be exceptional in some crazy generational way. 2019 LSU, possibly the greatest college football team of all time. Certainly, I would say the best offense of all time in the conversation for that. A year later, Alabama, same basic conversation. One of the greatest offenses of all time, perhaps one of the best teams of all time. 2021 Georgia, possibly the best college football defense of all time. One of the best teams in the SEC in the last 15 years, 20 years. I mean, you'd better really, really be good. And that's the question is, are Bama and Georgia coming into this thing at that level? No, I don't think either of them are at that level. Now, Alabama has the capability of really exploding on offense, but we'll see, right? I mean, we'll see. Georgia's going to really be good on offense too. Let me try to understand some of these questions. Would you agree that no opponent on the schedule can handle 13 and 14P? I don't know what that means. 13 and 14P. Maybe somebody can clarify me on that front. But I don't know if I really don't know if we're going to see that type of exceptional, unit in this league next in this coming year. All right. I just don't know. So that's the part that I struggle with them being as good as these last three, years. It's gonna be hard back to this question, any opponent on the schedule. I'm not sure. Yeah, I understand now the personal factors. I'm not sure. It's gonna be tricky. This Georgia offense has the capability to hurt you in a lot of different ways. The tight ends in particular are scary, no doubt about that. And I think you've regressed at running back. Stetson needs to be steady. He cannot be up and down. But for the most part in 21 he was steady. But I just think I mean the 2021, excuse me, 2022 schedule. Let's just see where Tennessee is at. Let's see where Kentucky's at the end of the year. Mississippi State on the road. That's tricky, I think. But and I'm on a delay, obviously, because y'all are typing this after I'm already addressed it. But I I I don't know that anybody on this thing matches up with Georgia, period, in terms of personnel. Because let's just say you really think you're special at receiver, which I'm not sure you can make that claim about Georgia, but they're really diverse at receiver. They're going to be trouble dealing with the receivers. I mean, it's just they're good, but this is a sport, and you get the other team is good too, and you get the ability to do, to scheme and slow things down. And you saw what Mike Leach did in 2020 at Georgia, where he took what Kirby gave them and he took a lead into the half, I feel like. And that that's the thing that gives you hesitation. That, and I've seen this over the years where, you just don't pencil in 12-0 seasons. I mean, when I played in college, now college basketball is different than college football, but it's hard to win on the road. It's just tough to win on the road. The question is, will Monken run those packages in the red zone? I think Todd Monken understands completely. Uh, I think he completely understands how to use what he's got. I'm a big Stetson fan, but I think he could be overtaken by Beck. I don't know. First of all, I don't doubt any quarterback at Georgia being replaced for any reason. So we'll just see. The passing offense, I sometimes I don't y'all sometimes passing offense going to go off. Oh, passing offense going to go off. That doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I don't doubt that. It's a really good this Georgia team has the capability to win the national championship. Now, will they? I don't know. Alabama has the capability of winning it. Ohio State has the capability of winning it. I would say that. I would say that about Clemson, but I do not trust their offense in any way. Okay. Um, when you look at Texas A&M, I don't trust them at all in terms of beating Alabama and then actually stacking stuff up behind that. They've beaten Alabama twice this in recent memory, and they've done nothing with it. You know, it's not enough to beat Alabama. You got to beat them when it matters. It's not enough to beat them if you're Mississippi if you don't back it up with winning the division. Same thing for Texas A&M. At least typically when Auburn beats Alabama, they win the division. Typically, right? It's 13, 17. So, in 19 they didn't win the division, but no, it was not a great Alabama team. So, you know, for me, Texas A&M, NC State, it's time. Are you going to do it or not? But NC State beat Clemson and celebrated like they had won the World Series and didn't even win the division. So come on. For Georgia, it's there, but it's easy for me to say, yeah, they can win. They can win it all. I got to go do it. TID breakout. I don't know what TID is. Y'all got to use real. I got to remember. I'm thinking and took a look at the camera and all this stuff. It's hard for me to. I don't know what TID means. Is that a person? James. Some of these questions. Look, it was a magical season in 21. Please don't say why not us. Georgia should win the national championship. That's just all there is to it. Let me get started on this real quick. This is one of the most powerful athletic departments in the country. One of the most lubricated with money. One of the places that has players falling out of the sky, for lack of a better term. It has a head coach that's won a national championship. Georgia should win the national championship. This isn't you know, hard to fathom. It should. Georgia should. Okay. Ingram Dawkins. Thank you. Okay. He did look good. And I talked about that. I thought he looked very good. There are guys everywhere. Marvin Jones coming in. Barry Alexander's going to be healthy by. There's players everywhere. There are players everywhere. They're just not going to be. You can't be world class every single season, and it's not going to happen. That's right. Lubricated with money. There's no shortage of budget at Georgia. There's no shortage of players. The coaches are very well paid. There's all sorts of stuff going right at Georgia. Georgia should win national championships, period. And not just in football. Mike White, I'm looking at you. Mike White, are you watching this? You might be. Georgia should win national championship in basketball, too. If you're not saying that about a program at Georgia, there's got to be an explanation. No, Georgia should not win the national championship in volleyball. Okay, that state it's not widespread at Georgia. It's not a sport that's been around for a long time. Tennis, yeah. Women's soccer, yeah. Football, yes. Men's basketball, yes. Tennis, yes. Gymnastics, all these other sports have baseball. These sports have won national championships in Georgia, but except men's basketball. But it is time for Georgia to come into its own. The state is growing. It's doing great as a state. There's a million things going great. Wow. Who would drink Kirby's dirty bathwater? Not me. So what's the next step for Georgia to topple the Alabama? Well, I don't know. The next step is beating Oregon. I'd start there. But like Alabama's not gonna just fall apart. I mean, even if Nick leaves or whenever Nick's no longer the head coach, Alabama has always been searching in football for, you know, being great at that sport. All right, they're not great at as an athletic department, but at football, yeah, they care about that a lot. Georgia only in the last, 5 years, 7 years has really been interested in winning in a big, big way. They got to take that and keep doing what they're doing, and they will win multiple national championships. I don't think Alabama can knock Georgia off of its current trajectory any more than Georgia can knock Alabama off its trajectory. I think there is space for 2 to 3, perhaps 4 dominant programs in college football, and we are seeing that 2 of them just happen to be in the same league, which is Georgia and Alabama. Now that can change. How big a deal is Dan Lanning leaving? I mean, you would rather have him at Georgia. I mean, but Dan is listen, Dan's a really good coach. He's obviously learned a lot about running a program. Dan Mullen's problem all the time was he didn't run program. He was a very good offensive person. But he didn't run a program. You got to run program. You got to run the whole thing, and that's what people wonder about Billy Napier. Dan Lanning at Oregon, to me, that's a really good, smart hire. And we're going to see if it works. Okay, doesn't mean it will work, but I thought it was a really good, hire. I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot, you know, I just think it makes a lot of sense. Well, here's Hayden Parker's asking the same question: how big a step back does the defense take? I think a half a touchdown a game, something like that. I think you can't. I mean, you cannot possibly expect these guys to hold people to 10 points a game. I think something like anywhere between 3 to 5 points more a game on average is what you should expect. I also think the offense can score to 3 to 5 more for sure. Jackson, Jackson is stating, I know that looking at the 2023 schedule might be a waste of time considering it'd be skipping over 1 year, but how interested are you for Clemson and Oklahoma in 2023? Georgia does not play Clemson in 2023. They play Clemson in 2024 at the Dome. They do play Oklahoma second week of the season. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma is going to be as good as they've been, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not betting the house on it, but I think right now Oklahoma needs a little time to adjust. Let's see. Don't you feel like though any defensive coordinator leaving is just really a shell of what Kirby is? I mean, y'all got to write in complete sentences. It's tough for me to read like this. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just saying it is tough when the defensive coordinator leaves. I mean, it's not just the play calling and like the intricacies and all that stuff. It's the feel around the program. I mean, Dan recruited a lot of those guys, slash all of them. I mean, it matters. Now, does it matter so much that it can't be replaced? No, because we saw with Mel Tucker leaving that Dan Lanning came in and, made it work pretty much immediately. Now you've got Will, Glenn Schumann. They've been around the block for a while. You know, I just, it's going to take a little bit of time, but they've got time to build towards all of this. Someone's saying Tennessee's going to beat Alabama at Neyland. I will have to see that to believe it. But it is tricky for both Nick and Kirby playing defensive ball against that hurry up. I mean, Tennessee actually has a head coach that it makes sense what he's doing. Their issue there is going to be recruiting. That's going to be the problem. Well, listen, it's been great chatting with y'all. Pick up DAWGSTRUCTION. We'll see you on the website. Thanks for watching. We'll try to do this again next Sunday night.